Some people say it's bad to watch pornography. Maybe people you take in high esteem, like your parents or your mentors or your priest or people who are important figures of authority in your life. Then also other people may be saying it's fine, everybody does it, it's just to get yourself off. And you find yourself in the middle of all that, so this is possibly confusing. So who should you listen to? Is it actually bad to watch pornography? Hi, my name is Dimitri. I'm a therapist helping men quit pornography. I have recovered from my own 17-year-long pornography addiction, and my mission is to help as many people as I can heal their deep emotional wounds, starting with pornography. Can you imagine that? A world where everybody has healed the root cause of their deep emotional hurt. I want it. I want it. Today, to answer the question, is it bad to watch pornography? We're going to start with some philosophical concepts of good and bad, and you may wonder where this is going, but hear me out because we'll finish with a very simple, clear-cut answer to that question. Before we go into anything, I want to clarify that we're talking about consuming pornography and watching pornography. We're not talking about the ethical issues of producing pornography, and in particular, if the people who are producing the pornography, the actors and the actresses or anybody else involved, working with their own consent, making sure they're not working under coercion, under financial exploitation, blackmail, or any other kind of abuse, which is very common in this industry. We're not talking about the distribution of pornography either, and the big platform companies, Pornhub or any big distributor as well. And the question of money in pornography is not taken into account. So here we're simply talking about the simple fact of watching pornography, assuming that, ethically everything is perfect. And by the way, if you're curious about activism that aims at making sure that people who are involved in the pornographic industry are treated well, you can follow the Justice Fund organization led by Layla Michaelwaite, who was an ex-porn actress who's fighting against the exploitation of porn actors and actresses in the industry. Okay, so let's go down to it. What does bad mean? This is a really broad question. Bad is a judgment. That means for the people you hang out with, in their frame of reference and with their sets of beliefs and values, pornography is not something that you should do because, well, it sets you away from happiness or from your well-being or from the well-being of your group or community at large. So we need to understand that bad is a judgment, and a judgment is a belief that we have about something. When we judge something, we ascribe a belief to an object. We associate the two together, and that acts as a moral shortcut. When we say stealing is bad, this is so that you don't have to think a million years about should I steal or not. The answer is no, it's a moral shortcut. And so these judgments of good and bad are the foundation of the moral code of your community and also of your own moral code, because you have grown in a certain community. You embrace the values of the community and the beliefs of the community that are conferred by and defended by the authorities within that community. So it makes sense that as you develop yourself, you borrow the community's moral code until you're mature enough to develop your own beliefs and your own moral code. But what happens when you're immersed into several communities? Then some of these values can clash and some of these beliefs can clash. And so parents, if you talk about this stuff with your parents, will say probably that pornography is probably something to stay away from. But if you talk about your friends at home, they're going to say that, hey, it's just something that people do. And you've got this clashing beliefs, and suddenly you don't really know what to think about pornography anymore. And so if it is something that is bad or reprehensible, you may want to know about it. We'll see that it's actually not about being bad or reprehensible, but it's about something even more important than that. And you may also have noticed that when we talk about sex and pornography within a moral context, there are strong opinions about sex and sexuality. Like when you shouldn't do it is really like you should not do that at all. And there's lots of heat, no pun intended, and a lot of heated conversations that happen when you bring sex on the table, which is not a good image. And the reason why is because sex is really powerful. Sex and pornography are powerful things. In fact, sex is probably the most powerful impulse that exists in life. We live so that our genes can be passed around to the next generation. And we have within us that primitive impulse, that desire for life that's embedded in our DNA of passing our genes around. And so sexual impulsions are very strong. And so moral opinions about sex and sexuality and pornography are very strong as well. Now, what we're talking about, these sources of authorities and what they tell us about pornography and if we should be worried, I want to ask you a question. Who for you in your life is the highest source of authority? Let's just take some seconds to think about that. Is it your parents? Is it your boss? Is it your priest? Is it Elon Musk? Is it the richest person in your surrounding? The most knowledgeable person in your surrounding? The person in your surrounding with the most wisdom? Who is that person who's the highest authority in your life? All right. And the answer might just surprise you. So the authorities in your life are people who guide you in their moral code. You borrow their moral code until you can make your own opinions and create your own moral code. So whatever people say around you, you are the highest source of authority in your life. Let's take the time to think about this. You are the highest source of authority in your life. Okay, you are completely free and sovereign in your life. And you can do whatever you want and trust whatever you want into building your own moral code, following, hopefully, your values and your passions. So what's happening is that when someone tells you that it's bad to watch pornography, you are choosing to delegate your willpower and to delegate your own thinking to them. You are hiring their moral code. You are hiring them to think for you. But it is still your decision to borrow their moral code. And as such, there is no authority superior to you. Mind you, I did not always know that. I left many years, 25 years of my life thinking that when people of authority said something, I had to do it just because I was fearing punishment or anticipating reward. But then one day I realized that no, these people can do or say whatever they want. Ultimately, I choose to give them the power to gratify or punish me. And I can free myself from that too, if that's what I decide to do. And it's very important to know that you are the most important person in your life and you are the highest authority in your life. I have not always known that. I don't know how I've missed that. But, it's all about education and conditioning. Bad conditioning and good education. And if you hang out with me, you'll never hear me say bad as a word or good. It's very rare. Judgments have little value overall because for every person who judges you, you can judge them in return with the opposite value. If you judge something as good, someone will have opinions to judge them as bad. And ultimately, this is just a matter of values and living in integrity with our values and personal experience. So these two words, good and bad, don't mean much to me. However, sometimes I do need a moral code. And I know that the bare minimum is that I do not want to harm people nor myself. So in terms of morality, I'm going to try my best to behave in a way that doesn't harm people. So it comes down to the question, when you watch pornography, are you harming people? And again, we're just considering a perfect world where the pornography that is being consumed is perfectly ethical and it's made by people who are having a fantastic time. And, no one knows you're watching pornography. It's you in your little room and no one knows about that. So then in these conditions, no one's getting really harmed by this, right? No one's getting harmed by this behavior of you watching pornography. Except maybe for one person, except maybe for one very important person who is you. The person watching pornography. Because for the person watching pornography, there is a risk that pornography is going to create damage in their lives. All right. There is a category of people, a segment of the population, that are referred to as PPUs, problematic pornography users, PPU. And so for this fraction of the population, which is pretty high, it's make or break about 10%. 10% of pornography consumers in the world have issues with pornography creating some damage in their life. Maybe it becomes compulsive and it creates an addiction. That's the most common and the biggest risk. Maybe it escalates into extreme pornography and it creates traumatic memories that we want to reenact out in the world. And that's harming yourself and harming other people. These are the most common cases. And just being addicted to pornography is a big risk. And it has so many consequences that I'm not going to cover here, but I've made other videos in my channel to present those possible negative consequences, especially of pornography addiction more so than pornography consumption. So pretty much everybody in the world watches pornography, all right? Pornography sites are the most watched websites in the entire world. So everybody watches pornography. And no one's talking about it. Again, this is because pornography is very taboo, and it's very taboo because it's very powerful. But I think the conversation should happen because if the entire world is rigged onto something, our attention is being absorbed by an object, we better know what is this object and what we want out of it. So let's say everybody in the world watches pornography, or 5 billion people, it's still 500 million people. That's a lot of people right there who have problematic pornography use. So the question I want to is not if it's bad to watch pornography, but rather if pornography is harming you or if it's not. Is pornography creating visible damage in your life or is it not? Is pornography creating invisible damage in your life or is it not? Is there a risk that pornography creates damage in the future in your life, or is it completely risk-free? And again, we're not talking about morality or spiritual considerations here. I'm talking about actual observable damage, such as breaking up with your girlfriend or your partner, or erectile dysfunction, or loss of motivation, depression, risk behavior, watching pornography at work, all this sorts of stuff that lead to serious consequences. Is there a risk that pornography is creating damage in your life? That is the meaningful question to ask yourself. And the answer is in part in your minds. It's intuitive. It's in your heart. You'll know within yourself what the answer is to, can pornography create damage in my life? Yes or no? Am I watching pornography in excess in the sense that it's getting out of control? Is my pornography consumption getting out of control and possibly creating damage? And let's just try and feel that for a second without any judgments. Just based on your intuition, do you think it's more a yes or a no? Do you think pornography has a grasp on you and that it can create damage in your life? If the answer is no, that's awesome. You can go back to your life and not worry about it until you ask yourself the same question next year at the same time. If there is a 1% chance that the answer is more yes than no right now, you must be experiencing resistances, which means that some parts of you agree that pornography may create damage in your life, but some parts of you refuse that reality because it's a hard reality to accept. How could we acknowledge this to be true? I am 100% with you here. How heartbreaking would it be that this innocent source of pleasure and comfort and fun that is pornography and that's always here to back you up in the difficult moments could be harmful? All right, so for now, let's just take a big breath and acknowledge what is, which is basically the answer to most problems on Earth. What we're learning today is that the moral question, or is it bad and are big people going to condemn you when you're watching pornography, is not really the question. The question is more about, can you protect yourself from pornography if it happens to be a danger for you? Maybe people are going to condemn you when you say out loud that you're watching pornography. Maybe people are going to laugh at you. Maybe people are going to encourage you. Ultimately, none of that doesn't really matter. If you have a strong position that you know pornography is not going to harm you and you can watch it safely, then it doesn't really matter what people say. But for a fair fraction of the population, pornography may be really impactful cognitively, physically, emotionally, And it's important to know that this pornography habit doesn't get out of control. That is the number one priority. Now, if you know for a fact that you have a problem with pornography and you want to take action, I've got a full online therapy program on my website, unhooked.care. I implore you, check it out, because this pornography thing is only going to get worse if you don't take action. I know because I've been there too. You can find a link in the description below. When it comes to quitting pornography, there is a lot of noise online and everywhere else. If you want to learn more about the myth versus reality of quitting pornography, you can watch my free video program on YouTube by just clicking here.